Everyone, and welcome to another Trial Site News interview. I'm your host, Brandon, and today we'll be talking to Timm, the CEO of Openwater. Aaron has held executive leadership roles at several digital, health, medical device, and medical imaging companies, leading all aspects of commercial strategy, corporate development, and business operations to scale startups into high-growth, multinational companies. He joined Openwater as CEO to help lead the company's commercialization efforts, focusing on bringing the company's prototypes into mass production and getting them into the hands of researchers worldwide. Aaron, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, nice to be with you. Thank you.
So, you've been CEO of Openwater for a little more than a year now. Can you give our viewers an overview of the company and what it offers?
Sure. Openwater is a medical technology company. We develop wearable devices for diagnosis and therapy. One thing that sets us apart is that both our hardware and software are open source. We have two primary systems. One uses infrared light to measure cerebral blood flow in real time. The other one uses focused ultrasound to target and modulate tissue in the brain and elsewhere in the body. We've taken what used to be room-sized capital equipment and shrunk it into lightweight wearables with small consoles. And unlike traditional single-use devices, our hardware is configurable. That means researchers can support multiple indications just by changing the software rather than reinventing a new device for every new application. Today, our systems are being used around the world to study stroke, cancer, depression, and many other conditions. Our goal is to accelerate the development of new diagnostics and treatments and to drive down the cost of innovation so that more patients can benefit sooner. Currently, our systems are for research use only, and we expect our first FDA clearances later this year.
Well, most people have a smartphone nowadays, so I'd like to hear more about your platforms-based approach to medical devices, or what is described as a smartphone model of healthcare. Can you tell us what this means?
Yes, so a smartphone is one physical device that runs many software apps. You don't need a separate device for photography and another one for messaging and another one for navigation. You have one smartphone with potentially hundreds or even thousands of apps. We're applying that same concept to medical devices. Instead of building a different machine for every disease, we build the hardware once and use software to configure it for different applications. So clinicians and researchers get a general purpose modular platform rather than a single purpose device. For example, with our Open Motion device, it's currently designed to monitor cerebral blood flow, but it can also be configured to measure blood flow in the extremities in people with diabetes or peripheral arterial disease, all on the same hardware. So like a smartphone, this approach makes it much more economical to explore new ideas. The most promising of those ideas can then be turned into a diagnostic or treatment software application that runs on the same base device.
Okay. The path to get a new drug or product approved by the FDA can take decades, or we sometimes hear cost around $1 billion, which is breathtaking to even think of. Can you tell us how embracing the open source model has radically lowered the time and cost for approval?
Yes, so let's start with what we mean by open source. When we say open source, we mean the hardware designs, software source code, and documentation are all publicly available on our GitHub under licenses that let others review, modify, and redistribute them. So that means our platform is completely transparent and broadly accessible. Regarding the FDA and approvals, Open source doesn't change the FDA's requirements. What matters is still safety and efficacy. But what open source changes is how efficiently evidence of safety and efficacy can be generated. With our approach, researchers don't start from scratch. They start from a validated platform and can add their studies to it. So many independent teams can run studies on the same platform, all contributing to a shared safety and performance record. Regulators, like the FDA, can then look at the totality of the data tied to that common platform the same way they use real world evidence today. That lets them get a more complete picture of safety and efficacy instead of evaluating each new use case in isolation. So using a validated platform and running studies in parallel can save years and millions of dollars in the development of new therapies, and that results in getting the treatments to patients faster. The same FDA standard is met with open source, it's just achieved at a much lower cost.
This must really help in lower costs for researchers, hospitals, patients. How has the embrace of this open source technology lowered the cost of devices?
So, open hardware routinely reduces costs on the order of 80 to 90% compared with proprietary tools. We're seeing that same thing here at Openwater. We're bringing the cost of focused ultrasound systems from more than $250,000 down to about $10,000. So a dramatic reduction in cost.
No.
That lower cost means much greater accessibility. Labs that want to study neurological disorders, for example, no longer need a large capital budget. They can deploy a $10,000 system. With that greater access and transparency leads to more research, which ultimately leads to more therapies. And as I mentioned earlier, we now have systems with researchers around the world all being used to generate data. So the cost savings are already benefiting real studies today. In practical terms, that means a lot more hospitals and labs can participate in cutting edge research instead of being priced out before they even start.
So as mentioned before, Openwater pioneered the use of infrared and ultrasound, which offers the alternative to more traditional pharmaceutical approach, which we recently discussed. So products are called Open Motion and Open LIFU. Am I saying that right? Or do
Yes,
you just
LIFU or LIFU.
okay, Open LIFU. So let's start with Open Motion. Can you tell our viewers about this product?
Yes, Open Motion is our diagnostic platform. It's a wearable device that uses near infrared light and high speed cameras to monitor blood flow in the brain in real time. The simple way to think about it is that we shine tiny pulses of light into the head many times per second and watch how the light scatters as it passes through the head and returns to our sensors. From those changes, we can calculate blood flow and blood volume in the brain right at the point of care. This capability could help quickly identify people who are having a stroke, which is a time critical emergency, so that those people can be routed to the right treatment as fast as possible. But the device is not just for cerebral blood flow. The same system can be configured to measure blood flow and volume in other parts of the body, all using the same hardware. That flexibility makes it much easier to explore different diagnostic applications without needing a new device each time.
Fascinating. Let's move on to Open LIFU or Open LIFU, if I'm saying that right. Yeah, I've read you've had partnerships with MIT and a hospital in Barcelona using this for research now. What should we know about this?
So OpenLIFU is our therapeutic research platform. LIFU, LIFU stands for low intensity focused ultrasound. Our system uses concentrated sound waves to modulate activity in specific tissues in the brain and elsewhere in the body. It has a small console and one or more ultrasound modules worn on the head or another part of the body so that study participants can sit awake while ultrasound is delivered. The system can target tissue by steering ultrasound to specific locations on the order of 1 to 3 millimeters. That level of precision is particularly important for reaching different targeted areas of the brain. Because the device is software configurable, researchers can adjust key variables. For example, where to target, just using the software, or how long each session lasts, without changing the underlying hardware. That approach makes it much easier to explore different protocols and see what looks promising. As you mentioned, MIT's Lincoln Laboratory, researchers there are using OpenLIFU to study conscious perception and pain. And at the university or the Barcelona use, they're using OpenLIFU to study all sorts of neurological and psychiatric disorders.
Is there anything we haven't covered today that you'd like to tell our audience about yourself or open water in general?
Well, one point I'd like to emphasize is just how widely these platforms are being used today. Using our systems, researchers are gathering evidence in stroke and other neurological diseases, as well as in a variety of psychiatric disorders like addiction or depression. They're also using the platform in oncology and blood-brain barrier studies. As more data are being generated, those data help to build a shared knowledge base, which in turn helps advance research into new therapies. That's the benefit of open science and open source. Stepping back, the biggest barrier to healthcare innovation often isn't the science, it's the economics. And we're lowering the cost of evidence generation with our open platforms that can be applied across many different diseases. If that approach resonates with your audience, we'd be very interested in hearing from them and exploring how our platform could enable their work. Thank you.
Aaron Timm, CEO of Openwater, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And for unbiased news and opinion articles and the latest in scientific research, please visit trialsitenews.com. Also follow us on YouTube, Rumble, and X.